the hosts for you within this panel will be myself. I'm Anessa Agovic, and I am working for Global Initiative as a field coordinator for Bosnia and Herzegovina. Besides myself, we are having Dr. Delia Magarescu, Beatriz Costa, Dr. Lucia Becker, Dr. Ana Paula Rodriguez, and Dr. Sabrina Medeiros. As we recall on the phenomenon of human trafficking and how the widespread is across the globe, not only in this region, we will refer also in this sense to recent publishing of the Organized Crime Index, which is an output of Global Initiative on which we are especially proud. And within this index, we have provided the insights toward two components on criminality and resilience. On the global level, both of these ranking in that sense on a global score on the component of team on human trafficking is higher than in the 2021, the first index that was launched. It is important to say that when we see on this global score, not even the resilience, another component of the index was not in a better place, which identifies that it is important to give more attention specifically to victim and witness support, and which refers to existence of assistance provided to victims of various forms of the organized crime. Among those is human trafficking. Not to take too much of your time, I will first give floor to Dr. Delia Magarescu, where she will go through different criminality based on 4 macro criminal issues, and it covers the aspect of human trafficking through different, we can say, crises, but also explains what are the typologies within these concurrent crises. Dr. Delia,
thank you very much.
Your floor. Thank you.
2 seconds to share my presentation. Okay, my presentation is trafficking in human beings in Southeast Europe during the concurrent crisis. Okay, my research activity has begun from the pertinent idea that the evolution of the phenomenon of trafficking in human beings in Southeast Europe has broken the unconventional barriers of classical forms of criminality and is currently more strengthened than a few decades ago. The main question at the moment is to know why this is happening. In fact, the answer is not so easy to be understood within both social and legal framework, but it needs a special attention came from the criminologists who are primarily entitled to pay attention on the entire criminal environments on the one hand and analyze them accordingly in order for them to advance some pertinent solution on the topic involved on the other hand. My presentation focuses on the issues of trafficking in human beings existed during the concurrent crisis in Southeast Europe, whose societies pass a complicated period of time in which the crises are succeeded each other, and there is no perspective to avoid their effect totally. This means a specific context which characterizes the countries situated geographically at the Eastern and Southeast Europe. The study carried out has taken into account the information provided by the Global Organized Crime Index of 2023 and was focused on 5 case countries in the region, with their relevant constitutive elements of crime context and criminalization. I selected Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, Republic of Moldova, and Serbia. Taking into account the official statistics in the field of criminality, Romania is ranked with 458 criminality score and the regional position being the 15th country of 17 in Central and Eastern Europe. Even if it is not specifically appropriate to the phenomenon of trafficking in human beings, the current position makes criminologists understand the average of in the field of criminality. The country is also considered a source and destination country for human trafficking and a transit country as well, the phenomenon being also organized in a transnational manner. The specific routes came from the Far Asia and go to the Western Europe or even North America. The most frequent cases lead to irregular action and consecutive criminal activities organized by the organized crime groups. The victims are both women, men, and children. Ranking with 565 criminality score in 2023, Bulgaria is the 7th of 17 countries in Central and Eastern Europe. It is considered as an origin country when speaking about the transnational feature of trafficking in human beings committed, although this kind of crime is not limited to this modus operandi. This means that a series of victims are trafficked within the country. Significant part of the victims is trafficked for a sexual purpose, and the statistics show that they are involved in other criminal activities. This situation provides an extended area involving trafficking in human beings to the neighboring countries such as Serbia or even Romania.
Sorry, Delia, to interrupt.
Yes.
Could you just put a full view of the presentation so the viewers can have...
I tried, but I'm afraid I cannot.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
This is okay now?
Yeah, this is fine. Thank you.
Just a few seconds to about Bulgaria and Greece, yes. Greece, the situation regarding the trafficking in human beings in Greece is also worse, which is preponderantly a transit country. Its 535 criminality score in 2023 shows that this country is the 3rd of 8 countries situated in Southeast Europe. Despite its transit feature, being geographically at the confluence between East and West, Greece is also considered as an origin and destination country. The effects of the organized crime focused on trafficking in human beings report a medium level of risk for the victims to be trafficked in a transnational manner. The risk of victimization increases thus in those cases in which the persons trafficked are foreigners, especially refugees or simply immigrants, both women and children. Republic of Moldova, despite its small territory, Moldova delivers criminality in ranking of 560 criminality score, occurring the 8th position of 17 countries in Central and Eastern Europe. It is primarily considered a source country with destination delivering victims in Russia, Europe, Western Europe, Middle East, and Eastern Asia. The victims are preponderantly young women, came from the rural areas, which are involved in sexual activities and prostitution. This kind of criminal activities are usually committed by the perpetrators together with the other ones, including the crimes of trafficking in firearms and drugs or other forms of organized crime in transnational context. Serbia is also ranked with 622 criminality score and the third of 17 countries in Central and Eastern Europe. Taking into account the geographical position situated in the neighborhood area with Romania and Bulgaria, this country is a very strategical corridor for transit in cases of trafficking in human beings to the west part of the continent. It cannot be considered a destination country for this kind of criminality, although the statistics provide information of this kind of issue and call it as destination country. During the last period of time, Serbia has made significant efforts in order to identify the organized crime group and disintegrate them. The criminality committed in different circumstances is primarily based on 4 micro-criminal issues, which concur each other within a multidimensional framework. First of all, it is about the COVID-19 pandemic. Then it is followed by the war crisis in Ukraine, the illegal immigration crisis, and last but not least, the financial crisis. All of them form a specific context for doing criminality in the field of trafficking in human beings, whose features are analyzed, connected to other criminal contexts. A detailed analysis of each is more comprehensive than a simple combination, which could produce confusion or unclarified approach. By doing so, a coherent vision will be established on the most relevant situational environments which generate criminality. The criminal environments are unfortunately always a source for these criminal actions and depends on several contexts, concurrent ones, as the crisis appears in these circumstances. The typology of crime presents the kind of specific criminal actions as they are presented in the following concepts: trafficking in human beings for sexual exploitation, forced labor, for the purpose of slavery and removing organs, trafficking in human beings for benefits of luxurious lifestyle, investments in real estate, cars, investments in doing legal business, usually to launder the money gathered from trafficking in human beings, with victims exploited or prostitutes without access to social health, judicial, or even financial services, trafficking in human beings involving illegal cross borders, illegal housing, false documents. And also trafficking in human beings as business, doing business, perception of business, illegal market of trafficking, commercial exploitation. The study carried out on the issues of trafficking in human beings in Southeast Europe during the concurrent crisis has highlighted a series of conclusive remarks. The main causes which produce the phenomenon of trafficking in human beings are related to the poor material situation in which the people still live. They don't have a perspective for the future, including the issue of unemployment and missing a basic level of education. All of these issues create the strong argumentative premises for considering people as victims of this kind of serious crimes. In some cases, the victims can have the chance to escape themselves and go to the judicial bodies in order to submit criminal reporting or complaints. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dear Delia, thank you for a very interesting presentation, and especially to present us on the trends in human trafficking and referring to latest issues that are actually accelerating the human trafficking. Following to Dr. Delia, we will have a colleague, Beatriz Costa, which she will present on Interagency Institute on Human Trafficking and observe on the sense of the project they are conducting that is dedicated to various communication and information between the agents that are observing trust building and information sharing efficiency. I would again refer to our OC index, which actually showed analysis on the resiliency, focusing on providing the support of victims, where this presentation is very interesting, reflecting especially on this trust building and information sharing efficiency. So Beatriz, it is your floor now. Thank you.
Thank you. So Sabrina, you can already change to the other one. Okay. So can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to take part in this conversation. My name is Beatriz Costa. I'm an affiliate researcher at the Interagency Institute, and my work over the last few months has been learn about and address human trafficking with a special focus on cyberspace. To begin my presentation, I'd like to give a brief introduction to what the Interagency Institute's work has been in the field of human trafficking and its relevance as a think tank founded by a woman from the Global South. The Interagency Institute has essentially focused on the study of human rights from two dimensions, local development and global security. In the field of local development, our line of research deals with sustainability and the regenerative capacity of territories, combined with the tool with use of new technologies such as artificial intelligence. The aim is to recognize the peculiarities of cities, analyze the resilience of places based on the preservation of historical, cultural, and natural heritage, considering the impact of public policies and territorial development strategies, including the integration of migrants. In this sense, we seek to promote cooperation arrangements between municipalities with common interests so that development integrates different territories, even establishing cross-border agreements. So the production of the results of the studies developed and participation in events involve dialogues between the institutes, the academic community, and stakeholders in the promotion of actions and policies aimed to promoting sustainable cities with a focus on implementing the UN's 2030 agenda. With regards to global security, this project is dedicated to various communications and information between agents, looking at the efficiency of building trust and sharing information. The security dimension involves the exchange of information, both in terms of the regulatory aspects and the efficiency of exchanges. As we know, interagency platforms, policies, and initiatives depend on the exchange of information. So the Interagency Institute is made up of researchers from Ibero-foreign countries, and this is one of the foundations of this think tank, the language and the Global South. Based on two components, these two components, Interagency seeks to bring to the debates a universe of different experiences in relation to trafficking routes that countries of destination do not have access to, or whose phenomenon is not so well studied. In this way, it seeks to evoke issues that are essentially endowed by culture and language, establishing a commitment to various studies, including human trafficking, especially in scenarios that, also they have less visibility, have no less impact, such as the Portuguese case, which I will talk at the end of my presentation, because Portugal, although is not a central country in Europe, and for this reason does not have as much visibility as a geography that establishes the country as vulnerable to human trafficking routes, highlighting, for example, the Atlanticism that surrounds Portugal. Through such debate, advocacy, and policy development, Interagency seeks to raise the profile of this phenomenon. You can move forward, please. Okay. Now that I have made a small introduction to Interagency's work, I propose to address the topic that brought us here today, human trafficking, which, as I mentioned previously, will be treated with a special attention to cyberspace. So, cyberspace has proven to be an ambiguous phenomenon in the context of human trafficking. On the one hand, the development of technology has brought us the ability to expand awareness and reporting. Today, anti-trafficking campaign efforts, debates, and all the tools to mitigate the phenomenon can reach many people who use social networks, and as such, bringing the subject closer to public debates can encourage a great number of complaints and greater awareness of the subject. Furthermore, it increases the ability to expand international cooperation around the phenomenon through collaboration between law enforcement agencies, non-governmental organizations, and governments around the world. However, cyberspace is always, is also associated with increase and change in human trafficking activity and the range of victims that constitutes it. If on hand, a few decades ago, human trafficking was approached as a crisis associated with the victimization of socially, geographically, and economically vulnerable people, today we know that the paradigm has changed, and trafficking itself has made people vulnerable regardless of social background or status, economic in which they operate. As communication and recruitment was extremely facilitated. That said, the difficulty of responding to human trafficking due to paradigmatic change and innovation in systems has put the proper protection of potential victims at risk. In the context of actual victims, the states themselves have failed to provide due protection. My research reveals to me that the protection and assistance systems for trafficked people are secondary in favor of the dynamics of coercion of the victims themselves through an approach strictly focused on national security. In this way, the victims' interests are subordinated to a logic of attempting to criminalize the victims, especially in cases where human trafficking arises from a situation of migrant smuggling, for example. In these situations, there is a logic of subordination of the victim interests, as I said before, to the prosecution of the criminal through border control, the threat of deportation, restrictive policies, or other practices that support the conception of human trafficking as a migratory problem, and which compromise the safeguarding of victims' rights and their propensity to report trafficking. So this practice not only harms victims who suffer restrictions on their right to participate in investigations, collaborating with national authorities under the threat of intimidating threats, but also compromises the approach of civil society, in particular NGOs, triggering tensions with actors with whom they should work in cooperation. This is one of the situations that have caused tensions between government bodies and non-governmental organizations. Institutional, political, and economic dependence, as well as the limited technological experience of members, implied the structural civil society develops activities that are sometimes antagonistic to the institutional procedure. In other words, the inability to act together with the existing gap in international cooperation means that non-governmental organizations are forced to comply with national security requirements and lack of protection for victims in contracting to their values. In addition to the issues considered before, the proliferation of the scourge is optimized, especially in certain regions of the world, due to the inability of the authorities to maintain up with technological development, which is largely precarious and insufficient compared to the capacity of international develops and organized criminal networks to expand human trafficking globally. This situation complicates several processes in the fight against human trafficking, namely the identification of the cases themselves mainly in cyberspace, risk assessments, and the identification of appropriate protection measures require specialized knowledge, as well as the analysis of trends and related data to human trafficking, which are fundamental to develop strategies and whose lack of specialists in these matters also results in inadequate and ineffective responses. And most developing countries don't have the financial, educational, and technological structure to create effective mechanisms in the face of obscure internet platforms, shrouded in a completely secretive system of message coding and trade with highly encrypted digital currencies. So there is an urgence to need to build a system of interagency cooperation from the local to global, and from the global to local, of course, in which highly specialized professionals would help governmental and non-governmental authorities to start acting more efficiently than organized crime networks. You can move forward, please. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, I'm going to briefly touch on the situation of Portugal, a European and Atlantic country, which is therefore an attractive position as a route for human trafficking. The majority of trafficked victims, around 70%, are men for the purpose of labor exploitation, mainly in the agricultural, construction, domestic service, and cleaning, restaurant, and hotel sectors. So, however, trafficking for sexual exploitation and of children for them, for theft also occurs. We can say are small numbers compared to the labor exploitation. However, the legal treatment of trafficking in human beings in Portugal is still extremely insufficient, although it has been punished as a crime since the first Portuguese penal codes. The legal gaps in the country's legislation have been worked on, but are still visible. So also the internet is a relatively new criminal engineering tool. According to a UN study, more than 80% of sex trafficking cases in 2020 in developed countries involve some kind of online contacts, and nevertheless, communities marked by inequalities and conflicts of every kind are naturally more exposed and vulnerable to the global demands of human exploitation. Portugal, the case study I analyzed, is an example of the inoperability of this flawed structure in interagency cooperation. since between 2007 and 2015, 71% of criminal cases related to human trafficking were dismissed. So Portugal, unlike the rest of the European Union, continues to report the majority of victims of labor exploitation from countries in the global south. The risk sectors that correspond to economic activities with high records of labor exploitation and to which the majority of victims of trafficking for labor exploitation are subject are essentially, as I said before, the agriculture sector, domestic services, hotel and restaurants, and the construction sector. And we know that pandemic has been a major phenomenon in many ways. And in relation to human trafficking, has been no different. Increased economic vulnerability through job losses and reduced income, increased forced migration and less monitoring and enforcement related to human trafficking, increased use of the internet due to movement restrictions, and reduced support services, leaving victims with fewer resources and support to escape trafficking situations, has brought prosperity to human trafficking exploitation activity. As such, in 2021, human trafficking in Portugal increased by 40%. Now, to end my presentation, I'd like to show you a video that I did in order to help add more knowledge, even if it's introductory to potential viewers of our meeting. Thank you for your time.
Dear Beatrice, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much.
And the video you shared, specifically in the end, aiming on important sectors such as the tourism sector and vulnerability to certain groups, which is not only specific for the region that you have elaborated in sense of Portugal, but also the previous one Dr. Delia noted on other countries within the Southeastern and Europe. I will give now floor to Sabrina Medeiros, and she can reflect with her own contribution.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Sabrina Medeiros. I'm a professor in international relations at Lusófona University and also a research lead at the Interagency Institute. And together with Luzia Becker, we are supporting Beatrice's presentation today. Beatrice is a research analyst. She's a research affiliate at the Interagency Institute. And Luzia Becker is, Dr. Luzia Becker is a research lead at the local development line of research. So we are very glad to be here. Our study initiated this year. We were previously much more focused on migration issues and border security in terms of the security of the migrants and how those interagency efforts would come up as a source of creating more efficiency towards not only countries controlling systems, but also the guarantee of the migrants' human rights conditions. So we were focused on the bridges between guaranteeing individual and group and collective rights, and also guaranteeing that institutions could comply with and also evolve their political systems. As said before, Portugal is a strategic location on the southern west edge of Europe, renders it as an entry point for people seeking a better life in a continent. And unfortunately, this geographical advantage also makes it a hotspot for human traffickers. And as you said, and as you could see in the graphic, Portugal is the most important entrance regarding the global south. Individuals and from Atlantic, especially, but regarding the European, state of the art, we are very much, dedicated to the understanding of the Portuguese case, because there is this limitation regarding the language. So we are kind of, trying to figure out how the Portuguese-speaking countries and Spanish-speaking countries are located, and how those communities are, behaving, or authorities or institutions involved. So this is still work in progress, and we are very glad to share our first group of results, as Beatrice and Luzia had participated into a UN effort regarding and within the UNODC, which is called SE4U, which is a multi-stakeholder initiative that has been granting civil society participation, and also data analysis and data building schemes towards considerations and instructions or suggestions for better dealing with institutional challenges regarding the exploitation of people. Those vulnerable populations as migrants and refugees they're often fleeing conflict, poverty, persecution, and find themselves in Portugal seeking safety and opportunity. And tragically, some fall prey to traffickers who promise them a brighter future, only to subject them to exploitation, forced labor, or sexual slavery. As said, navigating the legal and administrative systems can be particularly daunting for victims of human trafficking. Language barriers, fear of reprisal, unfamiliarity with laws, local laws, often hinder their ability to seek help and protection. And so that's why we advocate for the need of a multilateral cooperation word and scheme, and also creating more visibility of the huge crime which represents human trafficking nowadays, including its economic sustainability in terms of the crime networks, even reaching values more impressively more important than those connected to drugs or arms trafficking. Collaboration with countries of origin and transit is essential. And so that's why we really believe in those bridges in terms of bridging institutional frameworks that can comprise the origin countries' institutions, and those coordinating efforts and information sharing and joint law enforcement initiatives could be done and should be done under the UN agencies such this initiative. Portugal has made commendable strides in providing support, but it's still insufficient. And there's a continued need for expanded rehabilitation programs, safe houses, legal aid, and psychological counseling to help survivors to rebuild their lives. One of the main arguments that was raised in the last meeting regarding human trafficking under the SE4U, we support this discussion, which is guaranteeing that the whole process of researching, collecting data, and advertising for the importance of the human traffic scene does not compromise individuals' identities. So, and also regarding what they call forced labor, civil society institutions right now are reinforcing the need of substituting the consideration of considering forced labor, or because these some way diminish the tragedy and the way people can be involved. So not only many of those people involved in those crimes, as victims, they do not have all the information and all the capacity of dealing themselves or recognizing themselves as so. So right now the discussion is evolving in this way. We are trying to guarantee a common understanding and the way civil society can contribute to governments to enhance their practices under the identification of victims and how they can comply with this understanding that is being raised under the UNODC. So thank you very much. My position here was not to speak more than Beatrice, but I'm glad to have you here and to share some thoughts today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Afterwards, we will have a colleague to speak as well, Lucia Becker. So please introduce yourselves, and it is your floor as well to share your points of view.
Hello, thank you for this this opportunity. I want to say, Sabrina present me show, and I think I don't have so many things to say, but what I want to complement is I think the European Union plays a fundamental role in this situation, where Bia explained, and Sabrina too, in coordinating the resources available for the suppression of trafficking in human beings by standardizing legislation and finding programs. This is why the establishment of protocols between institutions, national and international, could have a positive impact on the fight against trafficking in human beings. I think in here we can say there is many programs in moment, but I think we need to another in this hand, and another hand, I think the population should know what possible situation of trafficking in human beings are and how they manifest themselves. This leads to specific training and awareness raising campaigns, which should be targeted at each profession, at sector, with precise examples of the situations that can encourage it and clear indications on how to react it. But I think I don't have no. The another thing I want to reinforce is we need permanent monitoring, because it's essential for combat all form of trafficking, particularly sexual exploitation, which can become more complex to investigate and prove, being a type of trafficking in which the presumed victims tend to be less aware of their victimizations, sometimes in relationship with the exploiter, more subject to its stigmatization process and less collaborative with the police investigation. I think I don't have so many things to explain. Sabrina and Bia explain what we make, and thank you for this opportunity. I try to explain more, but sometimes for me it's better when I speak in Portuguese, but this is not possible. But I want to finish my what I want to say, and thank you for this opportunity.
Lucia, thank you for your words and for sharing some of your insights. As we recall on the topic, we have to accent that human trafficking in all of its forms represent as a part of within actually the criminal market, and it's often linked with various criminal activities, as for example, along the Western Balkans, which is in my area of work. For example, there was like intertwining smuggling of migrants with the trafficking of human beings and vice versa. What I would like to use the opportunity also to elaborate on more of the this phenomenon that we were starting to investigate in that sense. I would like to address in this sense a question to the panelists, in sense of like, could we identify certain systematic problems in these mentioned countries, for example, that you elaborated?
Maybe.
Yes, Pia.
Yeah, okay. So I can try to answer. So in Portugal, one of the things that I noticed, and I mentioned just a a little bit on my presentation is the way we address this topic in a logic of subordinating like the rights of the victim to a national security approach. So sometimes the willing to how can I say to combat trafficking, to pursue the traffickers, sometimes is bigger than willing to protect the victims. So there is situations that victims are sometimes they suffer some threats to and are kind of obligated to work with security agents, even if they are really traumatized and are not psychological able to do that. And there are cases that NGOs try to hide some of their real data when it comes to the people they are rescuing and protecting. So for example, the security agents do not like interfere in victims' trauma. And yeah, that's why I told in my presentation that sometimes this governmental approach that subordinates the victims' rights can cause some tensions between governmental institutions and NGOs as well.
Thank you, Beatrice. Could you also follow up, Delia, as I see you have a wish to do?
Yes, in Romania, I also observed that during the pandemic crisis, the organized crime groups were involved in other criminal activity connected to this one. And the pandemic crisis has opened certain ways for the organized crime groups, which were interested in joining illegal networks and commit the crimes of money laundering, for example. The organized crime groups worked in close collaboration with officials, civil servants, or politicians in order for them to gather the proceeds of crimes from illegal economic operations. Some specific crime schemes have been developed with the same purpose. The European Public Prosecution Office of Brussels have investigated several cases of criminal economic operations, some of them related to the crime against the financial interest of the European Union. Indeed, during the pandemic crisis, the business companies from the EU member states have been granted with €1 million for the activity of controlling pandemic crisis or simply developing business in relation with the pandemic issues as well. In this regard, it has been observed that in most cases, the perpetrators are joined together within transnational criminal schemes, which involve countries such as Romania, Greece, Cyprus, Spain, and also Ukraine and Republic of Moldova. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delia. As different...
If I can just add something.
Of course, yes.
Not a problem. Thank you. Just to let people know that there is this UNODC effort regarding the Watson platform, which is fostering partnership against organized crime platform. And they have created a toolkit and also dedicated to thematic resources such as trafficking persons and smuggling of migrants. And there it has been possible that civil society can engage, create networks, and share information. So there is this legislative guide which has been built regarding trafficking persons protocol from 2020, and also a human trafficking knowledge portal, which has been dedicated to case law database and legislation database, strategies database, and treaties. And we are definitely believing that this is the right way to work within the communities, and upholding the combating human trafficking through interagency and civil society participation. You're muted.
Yes. Thank you, Sabrina, as well. As we recall to different research, which notes that across the globe there are like over 40 million individuals that are victims of human trafficking, encompassing the people of different genders and ages who are found in this trap of certain, we can say, forms of human trafficking. This is a form of the criminal activity that is prevalent in every country, in almost every country, and it is important to provide effective solutions for curbing this issue. So I would like to ask in maybe short, and concise answers to maybe reflect what could be an effective solution for this issue from the point of view of your countries.
Can I? So since one of the problems I noticed about was like this lack of specialization and international cooperation when it comes to technology and to to accompany the innovation, because sometimes security agents cannot accompany that innovation, and sometimes like the traffickers can have like bigger tools than the security agents themselves. So one recommendation I will make is like to make greater the international cooperation and the strengthen and an information and development system in cyberspace through cooperation between artificial intelligence specialists for research into trafficking techniques, empirical scientific experiments on criminal platforms, as well as the transfer of capacities and technologies from countries with more developed computer and tracking systems to countries that lack such tools.
Thank you, Beatrice. Maybe anyone else in sense of referring to effectiveness of solutions that are maybe not in place yet, but it could be triggered?
About Romania, also, I would like to add that taking into account the four high interesting crises I mentioned in my presentation, such as COVID-19 pandemic crisis, war crisis in Ukraine, illegal immigration crisis, and financial crisis. By doing joint analysis of the entire criminal environments created through the presence of all concurrent crises, it is not possible to achieve the best results in the matter of gathering useful information on the phenomenon of trafficking in human beings. In this regard, the method of analysis separate each other and disjoin them accordingly. I agree with the international cooperation as Beatrice presented in her intervention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Delia. In the sense of my work previously, trafficking of human beings, I know that we advocated much for building bridges with the institutions between not only civil society organizations as important partner in countering this phenomenon, but also with the public-private partnerships, specifically technology or tech companies, which you also mentioned that is important. But often we neglect very important factor that can help us in advocacy, specifically in advance on, for example, reporting on trafficking of human beings, which is media. Media also in some of the Western Balkan countries, along with the civil society, helped a lot in not only uncovering the issues or of human trafficking in certain countries, but also in sense of showing us the point of view how media actually see or report on this issue. So I would like to ask you also on this important factor, like how does the mainstream media perceive this human trafficking along the region or within your countries?
So that's a really good question because here in Portugal, I don't think that the population is really aware of what's going on because there's really there haven't been like a big work when it comes to that of the media. So I can say that of the Portuguese media, I'm saying. I can say that in the last few years, maybe one to two cases have been approached, and because the population itself made it a tema in social media. I mean, on Instagram, on Facebook, because a good thing now is the population itself can bring the temas to the table, but I don't think, at least in Portugal, that the media has done a good work when it comes to that, because I can say that 95% of what I know about human trafficking in Portugal is because of this research I've been making, and every time I try to speak about human trafficking in Portugal, there always a thing that people always tell me, that is, no, there's a phenomenon that happens like in third world countries. It's always what is being told to me. So people don't really are aware to what's going on here in Portugal, because there's not really a tema in Portuguese media.
Let me just complement it, Anisa, because I've been participating as a TV commentator at CNN Portugal and also SIC Notícias, which is a local one. And it's been quite hard to introduce this agenda. So other types of agendas, such as arms trafficking or crime organizations, they're much more common. So you're right that we should make sure that we can open up the agenda and reinforce it, because without the media, we are not going to make sure we can create awareness. Regarding the systems, let's say that even though there is a system for electronic denunciation, the problem, the main barrier is that those internet systems or cyber systems, they require authentication of the citizens. So only citizens or resident or permanent residents with the keys to access their own identifiers, they are able to create to denouncing those crimes So it's been quite hard because there is a national line of social emergency, but it's not covering those aspects that touch especially those victims of traffic, because normally people and authorities may think that people came here because of their own willing to have a better life, and so they had the position. Supposedly, they had the position of choosing the way they are today. So that's the main barrier, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
Anessa,
yeah,
please.
go ahead, of course.
Just a few words. Media is also very, very active in Romania, but I think it is basically informed from the judicial bodies. Actually, the victims refuse to go to the judicial bodies in order to submit criminal reporting because of many reasons. One of them is related to the fact that victims love their traffickers. And this situation is a major problem in Romania, and it is called also lover boy method, in which the traffickers present the situation to victims that they will go together abroad in very developed countries, such as those of the Western Europe, Germany, France, Italy, and so on, Spain, and they will live together, they will get married, and victims really love their criminals. And if you remember, Stockholm syndrome is similar with cases with trafficking in human beings, in which the victims really love their criminals. And for this reason, media it is very difficult to be informed about this situation, as long as the victims don't go to the judicial body to report, to submit reporting, criminal reporting. Thank you.
Yes, dear Delia, this is a really important point of view. And Sabrina and Beatrice, thank you for your contribution, specifically in the role of media, because the role of media, as you already accented multiple times, is very important, we would say even crucial, in raising awareness, and not only in informing the public what is human trafficking, which is actually lacking, and there should be more about it, but also debunking this myth of a lover boy or a wrong interpretation of a human trafficker. But besides these roles, I think that it is important also to provide a space for a voice from survivors, and more importantly, as equally as two other components, is holding authorities accountable, because we always need to call upon the responsibility of authorities to address this issue, because civil society organizations are there to support, but also to be a corrector to the institutions, but not to play their role. We need to hold authorities accountable as well. And for the ending remarks, I would like to say that as we are concluding this panel discussion, which was very interesting, and it was speaking about this pressing issue of human trafficking along this region, but I would say across Europe and in the end across the globe. I'm very happy to be part of this panel, but also I have to say thank you to the panelists and for your time invested in this panel, to share your insights, very invaluable insights, and to say thank you for everyone for joining this panel and trying to express on what we have been working on, this important issue. I would say that once again, we need to remember that behind the statistics that we mentioned, there are more stories, but even more individuals who haven't reported on this criminal activity and who are invisible to the system because they're not recognized as a victim, which actually accents again the importance of your work and especially dedication and commitment that you are investing in this important aspect. So once again, I would like to thank you for your time, and I would like to encourage you to work even more on this important issue. So thank you, my team, to call it like that.
We thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Our pleasure.